Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Gabriel Diaz, and I work here at the new school together with my colleagues Caitlin Morgan, who's somewhere, Marie-Christine Massé, who's over there. We are part of the School of Language Learning and Teaching, and it's our honor tonight to welcome a colleague, but more than that, a dear friend whom I know for many, many years. Mary Louise and myself met some years ago in Paraguay when she was directing the Binational Center there, and ever since we've been in touch. And it was such a serendipitous moment in March when we said, can we do something together at the new school? And Tom there said, yeah, let's do it. So thank you very much, Tom, for making this visit possible. And without further ado, it's my great honor to introduce you to Mary Louise Baez.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm based in Sacramento, California, so I came from dry heat to humidity.
Welcome.
Yes, but it's like all in the same temperature, so it's all good. This evening, I was going to have a co-presenter, Deborah Marsh, who is Associate Director for Pedagogy and Blended Learning. And she's from the UK. She's actually based in France, and she's over here in our offices, and she got sick last night. So unfortunately, she can't join us. But I've rallied a colleague who will be helping me in just a moment from editorial as well. So I wanted us to start thinking about technology. So I'd like you, with the person sitting next to you, to think of answers to these questions and share your answers based on your experience. And then I'll share some of my experiences with technology. So take about 3 minutes to answer those 4 questions with the person sitting next to you. I'm going to stop you there, and we're going to get some answers. First, let me ask you, how many of you, like myself, are digital immigrants? When we think about the technology, my first computer class was in high school as a senior, and it was an old TV monitor hooked up to a CPU. There were only 12 girls allowed in the class because in order to give us time, 6 of us had to come before school, 6 after school to get time on the computer. And that was to learn about programming. It was so exciting to be actually in the class because of our class of over 100 students, only 12 got in to that class, so it was very exciting. So tell me about yourselves. What was used in the classroom when you were learning a second language? Yes?
TV.
TV, okay.
This is when I was in grammar school, we learned some French.
Uh-huh.
And we also got records. I think in high school we got records.
Did any of you have those film strips? That's what I had in my Spanish classes. Those film strips, and then it would say ding, turn it, and then you'd wake up. Any other technology that was used in classes? Yes, Gabriel.
Language labs.
Language labs. How many of you used a language lab? How about what technology were you using when you first started teaching ESL?
Tape recorder?
Yeah.
Tape recorder?
Chalk?
Chalk. Yeah. So with those tape recorders, did all the tape recorders in your school have the counters?
Oh, no.
So I would get to my school in Costa Rica that I was teaching at early enough so I could make sure that I got a tape recorder that had the counter, because otherwise it was a nightmare. Any others with technology that you were using when you were first in class? Yes?
VCRs.
VCRs, okay. How about what you're using now? Yes?
Computers, iPad, iPhones, phones.
Uh-huh.
YouTube, all sorts of different things.
Hasn't this kind of changed what we do?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. thinking about these benefits, what are the language learning benefits using technology as a student or a teacher now? What do you think? Let's think from a student's point of view. With the type of technology you're using in your classrooms, what benefits do they get? Yes?
There's access for students who have, in my classes, all the students have iPhone, so I tell them about apps that they can download, they get them, and then I assume some of them that are more motivated actually go through and sort of practice things.
Okay.
We discussed that they actually use authentic language in the rest of their lives using their phones, so it's nice to me.
So it's really bridging the gap with authenticity. Yes?
You're going to share that mic?
Oh, the mic has to, actually, Tom needs to stay up here, otherwise it interferes with this and that noise.
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I think that it's a way also to bridge learning styles. I mean, the gaps between different learning styles, because the students get the visual ones, they get actually access visually to how they need to learn. And if you're more auditory, you get that access as well. And I think the technology does help us to bridge the gap in classrooms where you never have only one learning style. That's impossible.
Exactly, because we all learn differently, but I think back to when I was in elementary school, the teachers back then used to think that we all learned the same way by all looking, eyes on the board. It's amazing that they educated my class of 40 students from 1st to 8th grade. It's just amazing. So, but really taking into account learning styles, and I'll be addressing that today when we look at the different types of technology. So, here's kind of a retrospective for you of what was used in the classroom when I started out. How about the overhead projectors? It was quite a challenge to learn where to stand so that you weren't blocking what you were showing up on the screen. How many still use overhead projectors? Exactly. And what's the benefit of using that for your students and for you as a teacher?
You can write on it and keep what you wrote.
So you have a permanent record of what happened in your class. What else?
You don't have to be writing on the board for so many minutes what you have already there.
Exactly, because you're able to print out on transparencies. And what was the last word you said?
You'd be attentive to
Yes.
the class, because if you're writing on the board or trying to get all this information out, you're not there really.
Because with the overhead, I'm just standing right here, so I'm still looking at my students. I'm aware, and all the students are doing what? Do they have their books open at the same time that you're working on an overhead? They're focusing on your presentation. Okay, here's some more. Okay, so when I started teaching, I got to be able to use VCRs with videos, and I was so excited when I got to find the picture of the Mac that I was using at the time. In my intensive English program, a colleague and I got to design a class for students to come once a week, and it was to learn how to write drafts on the computer. And that was something that was even new for myself, because when I had started learning to write and writing essays, everything was always on paper and on note cards. You were doing all of this. You weren't drafting and you weren't editing on a computer. So it was a very different skill that we got to teach our students and get them involved. So there's been lots of changes. So it's definitely a tech world out there. And it's just continuing to proliferate. When I think back, I didn't start using email for communicating with colleagues until 1997. I don't know about all of you, maybe some of you started using it prior to that. But that's when I started using email. And now it's gone beyond that, right? What are your students using on their phones? Texting. How many of them are tweeting? Okay, so many different activities for them. So our goal at Cambridge University Press is to meet student need. And I'm very excited today because we have two of our colleagues from our editorial department here with us today. We've got the Director for Adult Courses and Adult Education, Jeff Crum. Yay, raise your hand. And we've got Glenn Mathis, who's sponsoring editor. Senior sponsoring editor. I knew there was a recent promotion. Exactly, and he'll be demonstrating one of the products that he had a hand in. And our goal is to integrate technology not just for the student when we think about all of the different learning styles, and that time is limited, right? Our time, sometimes in some of our programs, we don't have enough time to cover all of the skill areas with the students, and they want to be learning more. We want to make sure that there's options for in-class and online as well. And the goal is that when the students are in the classroom, we want them using the language, because that's their goal, being in class. So based on this, I'm going to show you different technology pieces that we have developed at Cambridge, and I'll be showing you what product they are connected to, and Tom will be able to wave around the product when I get to each one. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that we were engaged at the beginning, having some dialogue amongst each other, because now I'm showing you this. If we had a computer lab, we'd all be in there and I'd have you on the different programs, but hopefully at different points there'll be some brave volunteers who want to come up and practice some of it. So our goal with blended language learning, this is a quick definition for you, integrating the technology with the classroom learning and teaching. And this is what Deborah Marsh was going to be sharing with you. Well, it comes later as my summary. So I wanted to start out, we've got our newest course that was hot off the press last week, Ventures. I heard someone talk about Ventures earlier. Any others using Ventures for adult education?
Ventures 4.
Okay, level 4. This is hot off the press, and because it's hot off the press, the technology product for it, I discovered right now, is being moved into the next platform for development, ready to roll out, so it's not available online, so we don't have that one to share with you. But I'll be sharing others. Here we go. Interchange. Have any of you taught with Interchange? And you didn't raise your hand, Glenn.
Oh, sorry.
At Cambridge, many of us who worked there taught with it as well. I saw the first edition come across my desk in 1990. So as I keep talking to you, you're probably able to kind of figure out how long I've been in this field. So seen a lot of changes. So with Interchange, we're going to be showing you what support you have as a teacher. And talking, remember the overhead projection discussion? If you're using overhead projectors, you're able to get students to focus their attention. This is what you're able to do with this piece of technology called Presentation Plus. Okay, and I'll toggle here. Where did it go? I think after all of that, I ended up closing it out. So we'll open it very quickly. So the joy of technology is so many things can go wrong, right? At TESOL one year, I got to introduce the videos for Interchange, and we had no sound. There was a point also when we had no picture. But we finally got the picture, and then we got some sound going. So this piece of technology, you are able to install this software into your computer, and you have all the various components of Interchange. You have all of this at your fingertips. The student book, the workbook, video worksheets, and the video. In addition to that, you have another piece, which will be my segue at the end for students to practice with. So I'm going to go in to contents. Any of you currently teaching with Interchange? Yes, what unit are you in, book 1 by chance?
In all the books.
Okay, so book 1, what unit are you on?
Well, I'm not teaching right this minute, but I've done all the units.
Okay, so any favorites?
The exercise, I think it's unit 5.
Uh-huh. Okay, 5.
We're still on the 3rd edition.
Ah, okay, so let's look at, this one has some audio, so I'm gonna try this activity with you.
Right, okay. It's very similar.
So, let's find out what the most popular are. And you're going to listen to it, and you're going to match what you hear to the various types of music you see up there. So I'm going to pause in between.
Unit 4. I really like hip hop. Page 22, Exercise 1, Snapshot. Listen and number the musical styles from 1 to 9. 1.
What do you think that is? Jazz, okay. You don't think it's jazz? Let's see. I have the ability to choose a pen and write some numbers. I'm going to write number 1 there. Okay. And we're going to continue listening.
2.
What do you think that one is? New age, hip hop? Pop. I'm sorry. So we'll put number 2 there. So how are you going to find out the right answers here? Well, all you do, you have an answer key. And you can see one or all the answers. So the first one, of course, are good students, and you also got pop. So in terms of being able to review activities with your students, this helps you because they're all able to look up at the board where you have this projected, and they're able to see the answers there. In addition, you've got all of these exercises here, and you can use the pen tool, or if you're projecting onto a whiteboard, you have the ability to have students work in small groups and then come up and write their answers there. So what benefit does this have for students when you're projecting the student book pages like this? Anyone?
Well, it's a start to get them out of the book. You're in the book up here, but you're out of the looking down.
Exactly. You're getting them looking up. You're able to also see expressions and their interaction with you. Let's look at a conversation. So when I taught with Interchange, one of the things I wanted to do was to play the conversation without the students looking at it. But they didn't have the context because they couldn't see the picture. So I'd always ask them some WH questions: who's talking, where are they, etc. But if I had this tool, it would make it very simple for me. This tool is a little window shade there. Oops, I've added 2. And there it is, it's gone. So now I'm able to play the audio, ask the students those sorts of questions, and I'm able to focus them, because one of the things that's a very big challenge for our students is being able to listen and understand. And as adult learners, how many of you teach adults? Most of you? Mm-hmm. So our adult learners are very analytical, and they're frustrated too about learning the second language and wanting to get everything right. So when they're able to listen like this and you're able to scaffold the activity for them, it's really helpful. So I mentioned to you, you've got all of this presentation software for the student book. You also can review your workbook activities, and these again also have an answer key. So here they are, they do the activity, you're able to see the answers. I want to show you a video now. For those of you who are working with the 3rd edition, you've probably been using the older videos. Well, there's new videos now, and this one is kind of fun. What do you think it's about?
Exercise.
Exercise? Anything else? First meeting, okay.
Hi.
Oh, hi. It's a beautiful morning, huh? Do you always come out here this early?
Yes, I do. I usually get up around 5 o'clock. What about you? Do you come out here a lot?
Yeah, I do. I like to stay in shape.
You do?
Yes.
How often do you exercise?
Every day?
Really?
Yeah, I usually start my day with some stretches. Then I always do some sit-ups, lift some weights, and when the weather's nice, my bike and I are never too far apart.
Wow, you're amazing.
Yeah, well, it's important to take care of yourself.
What else do you do to stay in shape?
Well, on Tuesdays, I'm on the tennis court by 5:30.
I play tennis too. How well do you play?
Pretty well.
That's a lot of exercise for the weekdays. What do you do on the weekends?
Saturdays and Sundays are my days for team sports.
Now that's a lot of exercise.
Yes, it is.
Oh, look at the time. I should get started.
Yeah? How far are you going?
Just a couple miles. Hey, do you want to join me?
What does he say?
It's not that far for a fit guy like you.
No, not far at all. Yeah, I'll join you.
So you're also able to project the script for the students as well, and that's helpful. So this is what you would have as a teacher. And the last part, this is my segue into student learning. So students need additional practice with listening, with what else? Games. Have you seen the arcade before?
No, but I saw the word.
Ah. Aha. Okay. So this is the Interchange Arcade, and I'm going to need a volunteer to come up to do an activity for us. Who wants to be a volunteer? Who knows how to manipulate this kind of mouse where it's just you're able to tap on it? All right. Okay. Well, this is your first activity, and you're going to guess the word. So your audience is going to call out letters for you, and you're going to be able to click on them. So audience, E.
You have to help me.
E. These are all words related to entertainment.
A.
W.
Oh.
We're really good at this.
R.
Do you want them all to leave the auditorium?
Give us a hint.
Ah.
R. Oh.
Thank you. Now I'd like someone to come up, and they're going to do a listening activity. Who wants to come up and do a listening activity? Don't all volunteer at once. Sure. Okay, great. And this is from Unit 6 that we just saw the video for. So you're going to click on there.
How good are you at karate?
Yes. Next.
Next.
Do you ever play basketball with your friends?
Yes.
How often do you go out with your friends?
Do you ever go bowling?
Let's see what the wrong answer does.
Thank you. Now, this is what students would be working on their own. There is no login required for the arcade website. And on your chairs, you have URLs so that you can access these. And even if your students aren't using Interchange, get them to have more practice. Okay, so they then have the ability to click on report. They write their name, their class, and they print this out for you, and it tells you how long they worked on the activity and what score they got. So that's helpful for you as an instructor to know what they're doing outside of the class. And the student could choose maybe to do the exercise more than once. And that's is that okay? Yes. Because what's our goal? Learning, exactly. And we want them to have as much practice and exposure to the language. When students are exposed to vocabulary words more than once, how many times do they need it to go into their passive vocabulary?
7.
The range is between 7 and 15 times to go into your passive vocabulary. How about to your active vocabulary? It's over 60 times. And those exposures can be listening to the word, hearing the teacher say it, saying it themselves, but it takes a lot of exposure. So that's the arcade. So what else can students do at home? At home, students can also, let's see. Students in their back of their book, they get a DVD-ROM. And lots of times students say, I don't have an opportunity to practice. So what am I going to do in order to practice? And lots of times they want additional speaking practice. Do I have 2 volunteers? That one's probably going to be harder to get. We have one coming up, okay? And I'm hoping my technology will work on this one. It may not because we don't have a mic connected to it. Okay, so one of you is going to be Rita, the other of you is going to be Sue. And what you'll do is you'll click on record and you'll read what's on here. Okay? Yes, it's also small. We can go. No? Okay. That's our resolution on here. So, are you ready to start? And so after you hit record and you read it, then you'll press that button to stop it. And so you'll go back and forth between each other.
Okay, so I am pressing record. Where's the record? Right here. Right here. This is the record. Okay. Tell me about your brother and sister, Sue. Or Sister Sue? Stop. Oops. Technologically challenged. Again?
Yeah, on the other one, for Sue.
You're doing it.
No, just go ahead. It's easier. You can do it.
You're going to make me do both.
Just press. Well, my sister works for the government. That's actually didn't record. It actually didn't record.
Yes, so, but you get the idea. Because I'm noticing it's not recording it. It has to do with the way our audio is set.
Tell me about your brother and sister, Sue.
I guess it. No, I think it's just playing
and that's what's been recorded.
What's been. Oh, it sounded almost as good as I did.
Absolutely, thank you.
Sure.
So what would happen is then it would be recorded, but it's because of the way our audio cables are set up here. Then you would have the opportunity to play that back. And students really enjoy this activity because they're able to compare their voice with the voice of the speaker. So that's what happens with an ability for students to work outside the classroom. Did you have a question?
Yeah, Mary Louise, can someone do this with a condenser mic on a laptop? Just speak into it, like, you know, people do through Skype and things like that?
Yes, because I'm able to do it on the computer when it's not all.
Do you need an external mic plugged into USB or?
Your mic from your computer should work with it.
The built-in one?
Correct, because it's on the previous computer I had, it worked without a problem.
Great.
So this is a new computer. All the joys of technology, right? So this is one way that students have to recycle. If I go back, they were practicing all of the skills here. They have vocabulary, grammar, listening, speaking, all of the skills are listed there. I'm gonna have Glenn come up and show you something that students would be doing online. So we saw the arcade where the arcade registers what students do. The online workbook is another place where you are able to see what students are doing on their own, and they're able to interact on an online environment. So we're going to go to, is this one it? Yes.
So how many of you are using print workbooks in your classes right now? Many of you. Okay, great. How many of you are using digital workbooks? Anyone? No? Okay. What do you think the advantage of a digital workbook would be, or could be?
Access it anywhere.
I'm sorry? Access anywhere?
Access it anywhere.
Okay.
Without locking it with you.
Good, good. Okay. What else?
Shared information.
Shared information between?
Everybody.
Between everybody?
Student to student, peer to peer, as well as student to teacher.
Okay, great, great. Anything else?
Teacher to student.
You don't have to carry it around with you, right? Okay, good, good. How about instant feedback to the student? So you do the activities and you get the instant feedback. I'm going to show you a digital version of a print workbook. And first I'll preface by saying I'm a substitute teacher here. This isn't my class, so I'm going to be going in and I'm not sure what students are in here. How many of you have had to substitute for classes where you've walked in and had to take over for a teacher? Yep. So that's what I'm doing here right now. So I'll preface that by saying I might find some interesting students in here. What you're looking at is the teacher's view of the Interchange online workbook. And this is level 1. This is the same level you were looking at with the Presentation Plus and with the DVD-ROM. And I'm going to go into Unit 6 that we were looking at before. And you can see as the teacher, I can see how my class is doing. I can see how many students did the activities, I can see what their score is, and I can see basically how well they're doing. And that way I can follow up with them and do more activities if they're not doing so well. So let's look at Unit 6. Now, what do you see right here in Unit 6? I have the correct answers, which are 21 out of 26, which gives me an overall score. The students are scoring 81%. Not too bad, right? Okay. Now, what do I really want to see, though? That tells me the class, right? What I would like to see is how each student is doing for each activity. And that allows me to go in and see the activities. So I'm going to look at activities 1 through 4. And it looks like I have a student named Fiona Shen here. Okay, so let's see how Fiona is doing. She got 21 out of 26, and she appears to be the only student in this class. It's a very small class. Okay, so that tells me her total score. Would you like to see even more than that? How about down to what section she's doing well? I'm going to go in and look. And it's not going to let me in. Okay. Oh, there it is. Sorry, it was just being a little slow. Okay. So here's my student Fiona, and we were looking at Unit 6. And bear with me while it loads. And now I'm looking at my student's page. Okay, so I've gone from the teacher page to the student's page. And you can see here you are viewing this page as Fiona Shen. So the teacher has the ability to go in and not only see overall how well your students are doing, but also to break it down and see activity by activity how they're doing. So let's see how well she did on this unit. Okay. Here you can see she completed these activities. Obviously the ones that have check marks in front of them were correct. The ones with X's were incorrect. So, not so good on that first one. I think I need to review that with her when I go back to class tomorrow. Okay. Much better on the second activity, right? She had only one wrong. Okay. And the third activity here, mostly correct, right? Looks like she forgot one item, but mostly correct. So the advantages here really is that you can not only see how well your class is doing, but you can break it down and see how well your students are doing, and then break it down even further and see exercise by exercise how well students are doing where they're getting things correct and where they're getting things incorrect. Now, the students also get instant feedback as well as the teachers here as well. So the advantage as well as, for those of you who raised your hands earlier, can you raise your hands again? Who's using workbooks in your classroom? Raise your hand. Okay. Do you check the answers with the students at the beginning of your class? Yeah? Most of you? Yeah? How much time does that take? Tons, yeah. A lot of time that could be spent.
How much you give.
Depends on how much homework you give, of course, right.
But usually it could be time consuming. You have to sort of speed it along. You don't always correct. You can't always check everything.
Exactly. Exactly. It's very, very time. Exactly. Very time consuming and takes a lot of explaining to do. With a digital version of the workbook corrects the answers for the students themselves, so they get to see them instantaneously. They don't have to do their answers and wait until they get to class the next time. They get feedback right away. And it saves you all of that time in class correcting the answers that you could spend doing more communicative activities with students.
Thank you.
Turn it back over to Mary Louise.
Yes, you have a question?
Yes, I do. I currently use my North Star Lab, which is a textbook, and it has an online component where students go and do the listening and the activities and gives them the feedback, and it has tests. What's the difference between a textbook with an online component and the online textbook?
So this is an online workbook. So not the student book. We're going to see the blended learning in a bit with Touchstone Blended Learning, which includes the student book and workbook online. So that would be different. So this is looking at, the students are doing the same types of activities they would be doing in a print workbook, except in an online environment. So they're going to have the same student learning outcomes by doing that. Okay? Any other questions? Yes?
Has Cambridge done studies on how effective it is for students to press buttons versus handwriting the answers out?
Yes, actually they have, and that's what Deborah was going to be able to share with you. I don't know if you have any statistics to share, Glenn?
I don't have her research because it's in progress, but we are currently conducting studies with students who are actually learning digitally versus
Culture that's learning
correct
on paper.
Mm-hmm. Overall, what teachers have found within the classrooms, this is just anecdotally, that they found that their students are doing, there may be a class that's online and another class that's just only face-to-face, and they found that the students have progressed more. And they've also found that some of the students who, perhaps you look out into your classroom and you always see that student that you wonder, is that he or she really learning? And that student may just by nature be a very shy person, but when they go online and they do some of the activities with the blogs and interaction with chat with each other, they're much more engaged, and that's another positive aspect for you as an instructor, to be able to see how much they're learning from the classroom that maybe you wouldn't gauge because that person isn't really interacting or raising their hand in class. Yes?
So then how would that promote speaking?
Right. So this one is to promote writing.
Right.
I have a little difficult time with that a little bit, because I think writing, they need to write. I don't think pushing buttons teaching them to write.
So this is the beginning of that. Again, these are the lower level activities, and as they progress, this is just low beginning. So as they progress in their activities, they're actually typing in answers. And we're going to see some more writing activities as well. Yes?
Now, I have a question. I mean, I don't know how anybody else here feels, but I know that, for example, for myself, spell check has seriously influenced my capacity to spell correctly. So I actually have to double check myself to make sure that I keep up my spelling capacities, thanks to, due to spell check. Now, this doesn't really seem to promote spelling correctly because they don't have to do it.
In these particular exercises, they're doing drag and drop. In other types of activities, they actually have to fill in. And if they fill in incorrectly, they have to type correct.
Right.
And if they don't type correctly, then they get it wrong. Okay. Yes?
There is also the thing of typing and actually writing a letter.
They are two different skills, indeed.
Right. But to be honest, like you don't type a letter, and you don't handwrite a letter to for a job offer right now. You have to type it. It's authentic. It's annoying because it's not what we learned. But it's where we are, and this is the access you have to give your students.
So I think maybe we should be able to do both. I think that people should be able to write and be able to type. And
trust that the kindergarten or your first and second grade that your kids are coming from, trust that they learned some kind of handwriting. But in terms of, I don't know, calligraphy and fancy fonts or something, perhaps it's not your forte yet. I don't know.
Exactly, and also in the classroom, you may have students coming up to your board and writing there as well. And this isn't to say that this is to do away with any paragraph writing that your students are doing or any essay writing. And they may be doing it in a handwritten form. They may be doing it typed to turn into you as well. Okay? Yes?
Time for one more.
Yes?
I'm certainly a technology adopter and I use it a lot. What I question with this specific example is the delayed feedback. Students do this, they get immediate, you're wrong, you're right. Whereas in the classroom, when you spend the time in class to go over and answer, even quickly, you can see their faces, as you mentioned before, you see the interaction, you notice, oh, she's confused, why is she confused? Let's address this. Here, they go, I'm wrong. Oh, okay. Close the window, go to class the next day, nobody talks about it. That's what I would worry in this situation.
So as Glenn was showing to you that in the teacher view, then you're able to see in terms of your class how many students get X, Y, or Z wrong, and then you're able to see that that's an issue for your particular class. And again, in terms of online workbooks are something that are new right now, and so in terms of the access to the technology as well, it's something that's evolving because not all of your students may have access to computers to do that at home right now.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting thing because you don't, if they can do this, then you can check if they've done their homework too for the class. Because some people do and some people don't, and it's a different way to tune in to your students.
Correct. So how are we're going to progress now to online workbook. I'm going to show you another product that has an online component. And this is, have any of you been using Interactions in Mosaic previously? Yes? I taught with the first edition of that as well. And it's now in its 6th edition. And in the 6th edition, it came out with this Connect environment. So what is the Connect environment? Have any of you had any classes where you've used courses from McGraw-Hill that are in the Connect environment? This is an environment that exists for all the disciplines. So students, when they leave ESL classes, may go on to a class where they have used Connect in ESL, and then they go on to the sciences or literature, et cetera, and they have textbooks that have this environment connected to it. So I'm going to go into the demo section here. And this is my colleague's demo section here. And we have two different things going on here. We have access to the complete student book here through the ebook. And it has everything just as the student would see it on their page. So as a teacher, it helps you to be a presentation tool. However, as a student, when you're working on the assignments, you can have immediate access to what you had. Maybe you're in the lab and you left your book in the car and you're not going to go back to the car. Whatever reason, you may not have the book with you, you can have access to it this way. But I'm going to go back to my course here. And I have additional exercises here, homework for all of these parts within the book. So each part is so many chapters of that book. Are any of you currently teaching with this now? No? I'm going to go into part 1. Our assignment is past due. Oh goodness, okay. This is what happens when you use someone else's account. You've successfully entered our student accounts. Okay, so here's the student activity, okay. 2 questions, okay. We're gonna try one more and see if we can get into that one. No, those are past due as well. I would have been better off in my account. Okay, but what I do want to show you, we're talking about student performance and what we're able to see. Down in the bottom right hand, you have the section performance, and it's able to tell you how the students are doing as a class. So when you're thinking about it as the teacher, then that's helpful. Now in terms of the student and what they're doing for speaking, what I wanted to show you was a listening speaking activity. And the listening activity that they had, they needed to fill in idiomatic expressions that they were listening to. And after that, what's interesting about that particular activity is that not all of the dialogue is actually on print there. So the students really have to be listening to find those expressions. And then after that activity, then the students would be working in pairs to work on practicing those idiomatic expressions. So what I wanted to be able to show you here is that you have 2 different environments. You have the whole student book available to students, plus you have various homework activities, and teachers can also add assignments of their own. And you'd be adding assignments, we'll click on that. You can create it new from the question bank. You can upload an assignment if you wanted to. You could have a web activity as well. So there's many different formats that you can be using to add this into class. So what are students doing independently outside of class? In this case, they've been reviewing what they've been doing. They've been reviewing the same content, so you're recycling and you're building those exposures to vocabulary and grammar structures. What happens? How can students teach themselves? Are any of you using the series Grammar and Beyond? Yes, one of you? 2? In the back? Okay. What level are you currently using?
I'm not using it myself, but we use it in the program here.
Okay.
So all levels.
So I'm going to go into level 2 here. Level 2 is low intermediate. And what Writing Skills Interactive does, this is tied to the content of the student book, but it's teaching student writing skills that you may not have time to cover in class, so that they can do as self-tutorials, self-teaching. There is each level of the book. Did any of you attend Randy Reppin's presentation sometime a few months ago? Yes. Okay, so this is Randy Reppin's book, and this is the Writing Skills Interactive portion. And for every unit that's in the student book, there's a unit on here as well for writing skills. They don't necessarily tie up because the goal is to build these writing skills. So it's not like you're writing a paragraph. In order to write a paragraph, you need to know about subject-verb agreement, but it doesn't mean that that particular chapter in the student book was only focused on subject-verb agreement. So the goal here is, this is something that you'd want to be practicing with students, that students would have been exposed to previously. All of the units and all of the levels have this same format. And in their format, there is teaching, that students listen to instruction, and then there's practice on that particular writing skill. And when we're on the internet and I have so many pages open, we'll close out a few, see if it'll make up. Here we go. It slows it down a bit. So initially there's some vocabulary practice. Again, remember there's many exposures to vocabulary that you need. Understanding the context, and this is the actual writing skill instruction. And I'm not going to play it all for you, but you can listen to part of it.
Subject-verb agreement. When you write sentences, make sure the verb agrees with the subject. For example, Jim greets his professor. The subject of this sentence is Jim. The verb in this sentence is greets. In this sentence, the subject Jim agrees with the verb greets.
And then you can continue and hear more about that. So every time there's going to be this virtual instruction, and you notice the use of different color fonts that are there. In some cases there will be bolded words so that students can focus on whatever the core part of the instruction is. And after students learn about this skill, then they have 3 different practices for that. Some of these practices may be drag and drop, and others will have students typing in. And then they have a quiz on that particular writing skill. So the goal here is that the students are learning these discrete skills for writing that are going to make them more competent writers, and that all of that, when they're writing their essays for you, are going to make them more fluent writers, ultimately. So, this is independent learning, and that is our segue into blended learning. We've seen all of these other products, and this is pretty much a summary here of what blended learning provides for a student. I think some of you mentioned this earlier about it being individualized and also focusing on catering to particular students' learning styles. It gives them a place to practice the target language that's not just in the classroom. Some of our students, even though they live here in the US, may be living in communities that, you're nodding your head, we've had this discussion before, that don't provide them the opportunities to speak. They can get by without speaking English in those communities sometimes.
Did you define blended learning?
Excuse me?
Did you define blended learning?
We defined blended learning earlier in the presentation, and it's when you're taking the student and teaching experience in both inside and outside of the classroom and marrying those two together. Okay? And the skills that they're learning are also 21st century skills. Some of the teachers who are using Ventures and use the arcade that we have for Ventures, Ventures is designed for new immigrant students, adult ed ESL, and what they found is they said our students are learning a lot of these computer skills that they could use outside of the classroom as well, and that they're being able to use on the job. So it's not just playing their game and practicing their language, but they're learning these skills as well. So one of our premier courses is Touchstone Blended Learning, and I'm going to take you there. I thought we were logged in too long without doing anything. Any particular level, I'm going to go into, I've done things with 1, mostly, but do you want to see a higher level, intermediate level? I'm going to go into the online workbook for Viewpoint. Okay. And I'm able to see my content here. And did you notice the title of this unit? Social networks. Okay. too far here. Let's. No. I've got a listening activity in here and it's just not popping up for me. Maybe it's, here we go. No. There we go. So here's where students have to type the verb to complete the sentence. Have you ever what? And our verb is here. Which tense would it need to be in? Have you ever heard? And let's get something wrong. What was? And let's do one correct here. So have you ever gone? Okay, and I'm able to check my answers. And I can choose to submit my answers or not. And in this case, I'm not going to submit, I'm going to start again. So this gives students, and this is part of the research that I know Deborah was going to share with you that they've been doing on how many times students repeat an activity and what benefit that has for them ultimately with their grades. In terms of a teacher, I'm noticing where we are on time. I wanted to share with you what you as a teacher could do online. We have a community called Cambridge English Teacher, and here you can go for additional courses if you wanted to learn about particular areas. There's a course about teaching all of the different skill areas, but also if any of you have taught abroad or are thinking of teaching abroad and will be teaching some of the courses for the Cambridge English exams, like the first certificate in English, etc., you could take a course on that. If you have, in terms of professional development at your school, if you want your teachers to all be learning about particular skills, you could have an institutional membership in this class on Cambridge English Teacher. You could have a community, and in your community, then you're able to have teachers do certain courses, and you can also have interactions in terms of doing blogging and journaling with your particular group of teachers. There are also resources that are loaded here. Many, you know that I decided to work for Cambridge because of all the resources I had on my shelf, and they were all published by Cambridge. So I knew that professional development was very important to the company. So many of those resources are up here and available for you. There are also events where many of our authors have spoken. Jack Richards, the author of Interchange, spoke recently. Michael McCarthy, the author of Touchstone, has spoken recently, and I think Randy Reppin is up for something in the future as well. So many of our big authors are on there, as well as the authors of our professional development material. So that gives you something to think about in terms of yourself and your continuing professional development, or the teachers that you're training as well. So I want to be able to end and give you some time for questions as well. So we've looked at Cambridge English Teacher, and I want you to think about technology and what, I have a closing video for you here about tech support. And I needed tech support so we could get up and going today, because this computer wasn't speaking to the system here. Many of you may have seen this before. Let's see. Oh, what did it do? I think it's moving into the large version. Yes. I believe. Let's try going back. We'll start it again from the PowerPoint.
Broder Ansgar, Ja, det er deg, ja. Ja, så bra. Ok. Ja, hei du. Hei du. Ja. Ja, hva gjelder det? Ja, det er denne her. Ja, vil du sitte? Takk. Ja. Jaha. Ja, så jeg har ikke fått gjort noen ting hele formiddagen. Nei, jeg beklager at det tar tid. Så skjønner vi holder på å legge om til et helt nytt system, og da skal alle ha hjelp på en gang. Ja, ja. Så du kommer ikke inn i den, eller? Nei, den ligger der. Ok, har du forsøkt å åpne den? Åpne den? Altså, hvis det hadde vært så enkelt, så hadde jeg jo ikke tilkalt helpdesk, hadde jeg vel? Nei. Vil du ha litt varmt vann? Nei, det skal være fort gjort. Det skal vi se. Du bare gjør der. Sånn. Ja, da er vi i gang. Ja, så langt kom jeg også. Ok. Men så stoppet det opp, og så var jeg redd for at noe av teksten skulle forsvinne, så jeg turte ikke å gå videre. Åja, ok. Nei, men du skjønner at inni her, så ligger det kanskje flere hundre sider med lagret tekst. Så for å komme videre, så tar du tak i et ark, på den måten her, og så liksom blar du over på neste side sånn. Da fortsetter teksten der. Jeg blar, altså. Du blar, ja. Men når jeg skal tilbake, da? Ja, da bare blar du tilbake igjen. Ta tak der. Og så, der. Så er du tilbake til den teksten du hadde sagt. Ok, så jeg slutter der, og så fortsetter den der. Ok, men når jeg skal avslutte dagen, hva gjør jeg da? Da bare slår du sammen permene. Ja? På den måten der. Sånn. Da er lukket der, ligger alt lagret inni der. Altså, jeg risikerer ikke å miste noe av teksten her nå. Nei, alt ligger lagret inni her nå. Ja. I tilfelle du setter fyr på, eller det er kanskje litt sannsynlig. Ja, ok. Nei, for det er noe med det, liksom, når du har holdt på med skriftruller, så tar det litt tid å konvertere til å bla i en bøk. Ja. Ja, men du vet, før du går, jeg bare gå gjennom en gang til. Altså, jeg åpner... Sånn, og så, hva du kaller det? Blar. Jeg blar. Ja, blar videre. Blar frem og tilbake. Og når, ja. Og når jeg er ferdig, så bare lukker jeg den. Flott. Kjempefint. Ja, men du, vent, ikke sant? Nå er det sånn igjen, nå får jeg ikke åpnet den. Åpner fra andre siden. Så det er ikke likegyldig, det, altså? Åpner fra den siden der, sånn. Der nå. Ja vel.
So always challenges, right, when we're going into new technologies. What I want to be able to do now is to answer questions you might have and explain to you what you have. You have a little booklet there, Blended Learning. And if you look inside of it, some booklets have Post-it notes. Little Post-it.
Now, there are many books sitting on chairs that are unoccupied. The Post-it notes might be in those books, if you'd like to borrow them off of adjoining chairs.
So if you find one, we have a prize for you. Now you're motivated. So what's that prize? We have a book entitled Language Learning with Technology. It's in our Cambridge Handbook series, and this just came out this spring, right after TESOL. So some of you, if you went to TESOL, you didn't get to see it there because it came out right afterwards in April. And it has many ideas for using technology. You found one.
If you can't find one over here, 20 questions. Here's your prize. Very good. You found one, sir. That's wonderful. There you go.
Okay, scrambler for the one with the Post-its, people. Come on.
Very good. Congratulations.
Others?
Look at these books over here.
Let's draw one. Draw one.
You found one? It seems like there's still 3 out there.
There's still 3, but I still have 3 more that are claimed.
I can take one.
You're the head of the program. You get a desk copy of this, no problem. Anyone else? Okay, if you can't find it or whatever, I'm going to ask questions. Whoever gets the question right gets one of these books. First of all, first category, Dutch history. Dutch, the New Netherlands history. Who was the man who the city of Yonkers is named after? Yes. Adrian Vanderbilt, very good. Adrian Vanderbilt was the first lawyer in the New World, and his title was Yonk Here. It was like Esquire, Yonk Here, and that was the name of Yonkers. That was his patent, so that's where the name came from. Okay, why does, second question, why do we use, when we refer to the borough of the Bronx, why do we call it the Bronx instead of just Bronx? Yes.
It was a family.
Oh, you already have one. You already have one.
The spelling was different, and we changed the spelling, and it's a family. I just learned that.
Okay, but why is it called the Bronx instead of just Bronx? Well, I mean, in other words, like most place names or whatever, you would have, you would just have the
over there.
We
got an answer over here.
Because first it belonged to a family named Bronx. It was the name of the family.
And what was the name of the family?
Bronx.
What was the first name?
I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, but
it was. I'm going to give both of you this because you both got. Yeah, his name was Jonas Bronk, and he owned a farm. So people used to say for 200 years or whatever, I'm going to visit the Bronx farm. And then when Jonas sold the farm, they still said, I'm going to go to the Bronx.
So you learned some trivia as well. My closing thought for you is this little proverb up here. I think in terms of using technology, it helps enable students to have more contact with the language. When they have more contact with the language, their acquisition will increase and it will speed up. And like I said, I apologize on Deborah's behalf. She really wanted to be here and she was doing her best. She said, maybe if I take some medicine, I'll be better in time. And at 3 o'clock, she said, sorry, I just can't make it. But she was going to be able to provide some research to us. But you do have some of her research in the booklet that's provided for you there on blended learning. And when we have more research, we will be posting that on our website as well at cambridge.org. Now, Tom has...
Yes, some of you already have this because I was handing it out, but this is a technology demo request form where you can request demos of some of the technology that Mary Louise was demonstrating today. Anyone who didn't get one, I'll give it to you now. This also has my email address so that, like, for instance, if you want to get a demo of Writing Skills Interactive. Now, we'll do a little quiz. What book is Writing Skills Interactive does it go with?
Grammar and Beyond.
Yes, who said that? Yeah. So basically what you want to do is that you can access a demo using this sheet, but also if you would like to get the level of Grammar and Beyond that goes with what you're demoing, all you have to do is send me an email and I'll send you a free copy. Anyone didn't get this?
No.
Anyone? Okay.
Okay. And we can take questions now as well. If any of you want to come up here to the computer and play with some of the technology, more than welcome to come do that as well. And I know some of you had some questions for me as well that you wanted to talk to me about. But I thank you for participating and for being interactive. I know it's really hard to see the screen with the teeny tiny font size. That wasn't the way it was supposed to be, but when we hooked this up, the gentleman in the back, he worked miracles because you wouldn't have been able to see all of the material that I had on the computer. We would have only been able to see the websites, which would have been fine, but you wouldn't have been exposed to all the technology we've been developing.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
So thank you all for coming and joining us. Any questions?